I still remember the day I moved into Daniel's house. My sister's house, really, even though her absence had hollowed it into something else entirely. The walls still carried her laughter, the scent of her favorite jasmine candles, the way sunlight used to pour through the kitchen window just the way she liked it. After she passed, the world tilted, and I found myself drifting toward the only person who understood the shape of that loss, her husband, Daniel. He opened the door with tired eyes the evening I arrived, suitcase in hand, heart still frayed at the edges. "You don't have to stay in a hotel," he had insisted when I first mentioned my travel plans. "This house is yours as much as it was hers. Stay here, please." His voice had held something I didn't recognize at the time, not fully. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was a quiet plea for someone who understood. The house felt too big for two people carrying the weight of one missing. But Daniel greeted me with a gentle steadiness that made breathing a little easier. I didn't expect comfort to find me in the same place that held so much grief. On the first night, we sat on the back porch. The sky was painted in soft strokes of pink and gold, the kind of sunset my sister used to photograph obsessively. Daniel handed me a cup of tea and settled beside me, a safe distance but close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. "It still feels unreal," he murmured, staring at the dying light. "I know," I whispered. "Some days I wake up thinking she'll call me. Then reality sinks in all over again." He exhaled slowly. "I'm glad you're here." I didn't respond right away. My heart was too tangled to find the right words. But I nodded, and when our eyes met, something in his softened, as if he'd needed that small gesture more than I understood. The days that followed unfolded like a quiet rhythm we fell into naturally. We cooked together, even though I kept over-seasoning everything and he kept pretending it tasted perfect. We cleaned out the attic, sorting through boxes filled with forgotten memories, touching every corner of her life with careful fingers. We shared stories about her, childhood mischief, silly arguments, the random things that used to make her laugh. Each memory hurt, but sharing them made the hurt gentler, like picking up shattered pieces together. But somewhere between the shared silences and unexpected laughter, something shifted. I didn't notice it at first. Maybe it was the way Daniel began waiting for me each morning, 2 cups of tea ready. Maybe it was the way he listened, really listened, when I spoke, his eyes holding mine as though each word mattered. Maybe it was the way he sometimes smiled at me like he was seeing something he had quietly admired for a long time. One evening, rain washed over the neighborhood in long, whispering streams. I sat on the living room floor, sorting through a stack of old family albums. Daniel walked in, hair damp from the quick dash he had made outside to cover the garden furniture. His shirt clung lightly to him, and he ran a hand through his hair as he glanced at what I was doing. "You found her old albums," he said softly, lowering himself beside me. "She kept everything," I said with a faint smile. "Even the photos she didn't like." He chuckled under his breath. "She always said you took better pictures than she did." I blinked. "She told you that?" He nodded, and for a moment, the room felt warmer. He leaned a bit closer, just enough that our shoulders brushed, a small contact that startled me with how natural it felt, how strangely comforting. I turned a page and froze when a particular photo stared up at us. Me, smiling at something out of frame, sunlight catching in my hair. It was taken years ago, during a summer picnic. Daniel stared at the photo longer than he should have. "I always liked this one," he said quietly. There was a pause, something suspended in it, an unspoken truth neither of us dared to touch. "It's a nice picture," I replied, forcing my voice steady. "I liked it because you looked happy," he said. "Genuinely happy. You don't smile like that often." I felt the air change. My heart thudded once, hard. Something inside me shifted, suddenly aware of him in a way I had never allowed myself to be. We didn't speak about it. We didn't need to. But that moment lingered long after the rain stopped. The next few days carried a new kind of tenderness. Small things at first, Daniel brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear without thinking, or the way he'd look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I found myself noticing him too, the way he carried sorrow with such quiet strength, the kindness threaded through everything he did, the gentle humor he used to soften heavy moments. Late one night, I couldn't sleep. I walked into the kitchen and found Daniel sitting at the table, a mug of tea in his hands. He looked up, surprised to see me, but then smiled. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. I shook my head. "The house feels loud when it's quiet." "I know exactly what you mean." I sat across from him, and we let silence settle between us, warm and heavy with everything we'd been feeling but hadn't yet spoken. "Can I tell you something?" he finally said, his voice low. "Yes." He took a breath. "I don't feel alone when you're here." My heart clenched. I swallowed, unsure how to respond without my voice giving something away. "I'm glad I can help," I whispered. "That's not what I mean." His eyes lifted to mine, steady, vulnerable. "You being here, it feels different. Not just comforting. It feels right." I stared at him, pulse quickening. "Daniel." "I know how complicated this is," he said, the words trembling at the edges. "And I don't want to make things harder for you. But I can't pretend I haven't felt something for you for a long time. Even before," he hesitated. "Before everything changed." The world seemed to tilt. Not in shock, not in confusion, but in recognition. Because the truth I had buried deep inside rose quietly to meet his words. "I had a crush on you once," I admitted, my voice barely audible. His breath caught. "Once." I looked down at my hands, then back at him. "It never completely went away. I just hid it because it didn't matter. You were married to my sister. And she loved you. And I loved her," he said softly. "I always will. But that doesn't erase what my heart knew long before I ever let myself understand it." A quiet ache spread through my chest, tender, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his voice dropping to a careful whisper. "I would never ask you for something you're not ready for. But I needed to be honest. You deserve honesty." Tears burned unexpectedly at the corners of my eyes, not from sadness, but from the weight of finally hearing something I had once tried to extinguish in myself. "Daniel," I whispered, "I don't know if anyone has ever looked at me the way you do." He smiled gently, a smile that warmed the parts of me I thought had gone numb. "I look at you like that because that's how I see you." The silence stretched again, but this time, it felt like a beginning rather than an ending. His thumb brushed lightly across my knuckles, and I felt a warmth bloom inside me, soft and safe. "Whatever happens next," he murmured, "we take it slowly. Together." I nodded, my fingers curling gently into his. "Together." And as I sat there, holding Daniel's hand, I realized that sometimes love doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes it appears gently, like a familiar light returning after a long night. Soft, steady, and impossible to turn away from.